think. I've been getting that wrong lately. And I just caught myself because I always run my stupid mouth for a minute before I have the guests introduce themselves. I'm evolving. I'm becoming aware. It took 473 episodes. How about you introduce yourself, sir?
Well, good afternoon, good morning, good evening to wherever people are watching in the world. My name is Ewan Spence. I'm based in Edinburgh in Scotland, waves to flag, because we've got one of those as well. I've spent most of the 21st century making a living on the internet, be that podcasting, writing, videos, coaching sessions, from music, films, through technology, and back out the other side again.
Mm-hmm. And that's good news for me. I started podcasting in December 2019 above my parents' garage. I moved out about 2 months ago at age 30.
Cool. My first podcast appearance was November 2004. My first published podcast was February 14th, 2005.
So you've got a good decade and a half on me.
I have got a good decade. Unfortunately, I didn't make that much money out of it. So unlike others, but there you go. Sometimes it's for the love.
Hey, you know what? I have not made a penny. 473 episodes and I haven't made a penny, and I love it. I want to make a penny, but I love it. So
the secret is not here. The secret is to lean on things like Patreon and stuff, which you've seen you've got, and you've got your merchandise and everything. Has anybody ever bought any merchandise?
A couple people, not a whole lot.
And did you make a profit from that?
I did, so I have made a penny.
So I don't want to hear I haven't made any money from podcasting from you. All right, you're meant to be the land of the free and the entrepreneurs and the business shit. So it's just like, oh, I've not made any money. Yes, you have. Unless the IRS are watching, in which case, no, you
haven't made a penny. I've never made a money. I'm not even in the United States. I'm in Canada.
Yes, you are. There's a flag behind you.
Shit, what are you doing?
It's not the Canadian flag. I know that one.
Okay, this podcast is over.
But admittedly, Canada's only got 9 states, and there's 9 stars on it. So maybe it's an alternative Canada flag, but I'm not sure.
Just give it away. So. So I found you because I always tell everyone, I'm always trying to expand my horizons and have on more and more diverse guests. I don't like to limit myself. It's tomorrow for the 3rd time is Charlie Duke, who is the 10th man to walk on the moon. I've had on.
I interviewed the last man to walk on the moon, Gene Cernan, a couple of years ago.
Really?
He's dead now. And yeah, because he had a film called Last Man on the Moon. It was a documentary film. It's great to watch. One of the things that Gene did when he was on the moon is he wrote his daughter's name in moon dust just before he left.
I didn't know that.
And that means when we're all gone,
forever,
when everything is disappeared and turned to dust, his daughter's name will still be written on the moon.
What a father. What a beast. That's beautiful. I've now met someone else who's interviewed a man on the moon. I have met my equal. I always kind of I talk shit. I always say, hey, I've interviewed a guy on the moon. Joe Rogan hasn't, and I just met someone who has. But yeah,
many of them left now. I think there's only 3 or 4 of them still alive.
4 alive, and Buzz Aldrin.
No, hold on, Buzz and
Charlie Duke.
Is Al Bean still with us?
I think so.
Alvin and Lovell didn't walk on the moon. Should have, but wish they'd given him 16.
Yeah.
John Young, we still got John Young?
I'm not sure. I know, but I've had Buzz Aldrin's secretary on this podcast twice, but Buzz, I believe, is officially finished with podcasts, and I think. And
you're right too. I mean, it's like one thing they did 60 years ago.
Yeah, I know, right? It's and the third, because listen, let's just call it what it is. They're very old now, and I do believe that one of them I reached out to, I kind of read between the lines. I think it was his daughter I spoke to. I forget the name, but she said basically her father's not doing any more interviews. I think his memory is going, and it's. I don't know, preserve a legacy. Maybe he doesn't want to be on. And I completely understand and respect.
Here we go. Harrison Schmidt, Charlie Duke, Dave Scott, who we missed probably because of the stamps, and Buzz. Yeah. That's the 4 that we still have.
Yeah, it might have been, I'm not sure. One of the ones I reached out to, the kind of feeling I got was they were in their later years. And
I mean, these are people in their 90s now.
Yeah. Charlie Duke, you wouldn't know, man. He just started working at a defense contractor last year, doing something new. He's coming on for the third time tomorrow. He emails me from his iPhone. I mean, Charlie Duke, you'd have no idea.
If I was wanting somebody to interview any astronaut, the astronaut from STS-26 and Mike Mullane. Mike Mullane is a shuttle astronaut. He was one of the TFNG crew, and he's done 3 shuttle flights, and 2 of them are military shuttle flights, which is basically we went up, we did stuff, we came back down again.
Well, that's I'm glad you brought that up. There's is it Guy? I think Guy Buford. There's
Guy Buford was on one of Mullane's flights. Yes. He was on 26, I think.
Yeah. There's a YouTube channel I love. I think it's Dark Docs. It's a guy that does like 5 different channels: Dark Docs, Dark Skies, Dark Footage. It's all kind of Cold War history stuff. But he has a great one on the. Yeah, that's it.
That is the 26 badge.
Yes, sir.
26 badge with the names on the side here actually. Yeah. I can't make them out in this light. Gibson, Mullane, Ross, Shepard, and Gardner. So no, that's 26. So Mullane, Buford must be one of the late ones. But yeah, there you go. Yeah. A tiny bit of space memorabilia there for you.
He's got there's an episode I watched, short, maybe like 10-minute video, and it was on the secret military flights. I mean, I had always known that the Air Force had a hand in the development of the space shuttle. They wanted the bay larger so it could carry up bigger things.
Well, I think that's been confirmed and stuff. One of the reasons the shuttle bay is 60 foot by 15 foot. We were going to talk about tech. Sorry, dudes.
This is tech,
yeah.
Right?
It's the same size as the Hexagon satellites.
Hexagon, Corona, Keyhole.
Yeah. So the assumption has always been that STS-26 was one of the ones that took up a keyhole, threw it over the side, and brought it back again. The rumors are that it didn't work.
Yeah.
So they had to come back to it 3 days later, do a secret spacewalk without telling anybody, fixed it, and then put it back into orbit. So they landed, they all got a medal, but they weren't allowed to show anybody their medals because it was a state national secret.
That's some Tom Clancy shit, man. That's some Tom Clancy shit.
To this day, they've never said what happened. But ISS, there was one a couple of years back when they said, right, we're going to do the 200th spacewalk. So we're going to make a big noise about it. And then somebody came on and said, guys, whatever you do, don't call it the 200th spacewalk. Why? We've counted them. Yeah, we know. Don't call it the 200th spacewalk.
Oh, because no one else knows.
So somewhere there's one more.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah.
So Mike Mullane has actually done a really good autobiography. So it's called Riding Rockets. You should grab it from Amazon. It is one of the most honest books about being an astronaut, because there's an entire chapter about how he's just absolutely petrified of the launch in this.
What is it? Riding Rockets?
Riding Rockets.
Okay, I'm looking it up right now. Mike Mullane.
And he's ex-USAF, so he knows what he can talk about, what he can't talk about. But I think he'll be a fascinating guest.
Man, well, I gotta try to get him. Yeah, I gotta find it right now. The space shot. There's it's like a 10-minute video. Where is it?
Yeah, I mean, I follow the Dark Dog stuff as well.
Okay, good. Okay, then the secret. I'm going to email it to you right now. It's all about the NRO and stuff, which the National Reconnaissance Office was.
Have a look also for. I'm just going to check my Amazon list. There's another one you might like. And it's called Into the Black or Into the Deep. Let me just
Into the Black. No, I've read that book. That's a great one.
Yeah, best STS one.
Yeah. It's the whole. What I love about it is when they're talking about Guy Buford in the Dark Docs video. They say they went up there, and it's there's not a screw up there that isn't accounted for. So it's not like maybe you could kind of. They're all up there.
Apart from one corned beef sandwich.
Yeah. And well, they brought up some stuff in their pockets, but the way they describe it is like at one point, Guy got ready for his own, like he went into the back bay and everyone else pretended not to notice. And he went up and he released this little rotating thing for the Department of Defense. Yeah. Really tiny, like the size of a basketball, came back in and no one said a word. And I'm like, it's real. Like the Splinter Cell, like conspiracy movie, it's real. That stuff's real. And you gotta wonder what the hell's going on right now.
I think with everything, every single military campaign, every single war that's been fought has always had things happen that spend hundreds of years coming out. And it's not a conspiracy or anything, although that makes for great clickbait titles. It's just, you don't talk about that. Like for a long time, hold on, let's go back. You might have seen this in Dark Dogs. Have you heard about The Man Who Never Was?
No.
It's from World War II. So this is 1943. And the Allies are getting ready to invade Axis Europe, and they're coming up from the Mediterranean. And everybody, you look at where everything is. You're going through Sicily. We're looking at the sea distance. We know where you are. You're going through Sicily.
Yeah.
So all of the Axis forces defended Sicily. But they wanted to try and convince them that they were going through Crete or further to the east. So the British came up with this wonderful, wonderful campaign. They took a body and chucked it out a submarine on the coast of Spain, washed up ashore, and the German intelligence, through a Spanish agent, found that there was this signals officer, I think it's a signals officer, who was carrying secret documents about the invasion of Crete.
I have heard of that.
And
keep going, yeah.
They fell for it. The Germans went right. They moved all the tanks out of that. Half the defences of Sicily, still a rough bit of fighting. You still got to go all the way up through Italy, and that's where one of my grandfathers was, walking up to Berlin the hard way from Tunisia. Took him a couple of years. There were a couple of problems along the way, But yeah, that sort of thing was never really talked about. There was a film in the 50s that kind of alluded to some of it. But, in exactly the same, signals intelligence, you've seen the impact of that in the last week with the instant messaging client that various underground criminal elements in Australia thought was completely clean. It's like, no, the US government wrote it. There was one time one of the governments set up a fake bank to get one drug dealer so they could track the payments going through, but they were so good at it that countless other criminal organizations started to use this bank. So they had to share it out with all the intelligence agencies. They were going, right, we got this bank. It's not a real bank, but it's a bank. Yeah.
I mean, at a certain point, you gotta just wonder if they're like, man, we're making a killing on this bank. Maybe we just go in a bank. But that's another kind of odd. That's an odd thing that happens a lot in the intelligence community is you can't just pounce on the guy as soon as you get him, because that will give away your sources and methods. And if you're acting like a light to moths and they're all coming to you, I mean, that's a hairy thing, right? Because what if if we take down Mr. Spence today, we can save 10 lives. But they know that Mr. Spence is now talking to Tommy, and Tommy's friends with these people. If we sacrifice these 10 lives, in a year, we might be able to save 100,000. But that does happen where they monitor child trafficking rings because it branches out into bigger and bigger networks.
The one that's now proven false because of history and because we now know the timescales, but was generally always regarded to be true, was Coventry in World War II, where the British forces cracked the code that said there is going to be this mass bombing raid on Coventry, the city of Coventry, and we can stop it. And they went, no, we're not stopping it, because then they'll know we've broken the codes.
Yeah.
Now it actually turns out, now we've looked at the past, that the decoding of the message that said they're going to bomb Coventry happened after the fact. But for a long time, that was the sort of accepted knowledge.
Yeah.
It was like, nope, we're going to do that.
Yeah, there's a bigger fish.
Again, the Enigma codes and code breaking and all of that, it's a fascinating subject.
Yeah.
The techniques change.
Yeah. But you can't spoil.
Also, human ingenuity. So Enigma, the first layer was you would press a key on the keypad. See, you press the letter A, and it would turn into another letter, and then it would go into the code machine. So there would be this sort of first level of, we're going to change all the letters, and that's 26 to the power of whatever, ridiculous number of combinations. And the British could not work out that first line of defence. Couldn't get past that. And then the Polish code breakers, who'd escaped from continental Europe, said, Yeah, we cracked that ages ago. Oh, what is it? Well, it's dead easy. A equals A, B equals B, C equals C, D equals D. They just basically wired everything in a straight line. And none of the Brits thought, well, we should check the obvious one first, should we? Oh, yeah, okay.
Noted. and moving forward now. That's something, yeah, you can't really bring up. You're like, oh, I didn't think. Yeah, the simplicity of it is and another odd thing I always like to think about is we see again and again, right, with like Operation Paperclip or going in and getting the guys from Unit 731 in Imperial Japan. Another sort of dark realization is that whenever we are going against these war criminals or kind of rogue states, we do wipe out the upper echelons, right? Nuremberg trials. Except for the very upper echelon. We take them for their intel and we kind of kill the rest or imprison the rest. But let's
go back to talking about the space stuff. That's where I'm
okay, yeah, sure, yeah. Let's go back to that. No, what do you think is going on with the X-37B? Do you think
exactly the same thing that's happened with countless things, from Gemini through MISS through the various uses of Skylab? Stuff is being tested.
Yeah.
It's a bit like podcasting or YouTube. They don't know what works. They're going to send something up and give it a go. Yeah. The advantage now is they can bring it back down again, and have a look at what's going on. It's exactly the same thing as, I'll stay back to World War II, but it's exactly the same as we've invented RDF to help when the Germans are coming across the channel, or we've discovered how to use this radio beacon to create the instrument landing system so we can bring in bombers in the dark. The person who did that was Arthur C. Clarke, who went on to do some more book writing and film writing and became part of one of the most influential science fiction films in the world, but he also invented radar-assisted landing in World War II. Mm-hmm. And again, you're not going to tell anybody that. Yeah. Germans aren't going to go, they shot up that plane, it will never get home, it can't find anything. Beep, 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 beep. There we go. So, something like, space is the high ground. And you go back to Sun Tzu, and before that, you have the high ground, you have an edge. Mm-hmm. It's as simple as that.
It is. I've had on Tyler Morton. He's an active USAF colonel who wrote from Kitty Hawk to the U-2, but it's this whole book about ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. He talks about the balloons in the Civil War, and then World War I, the biplanes, and all the importance of it, and the kind of just, again, like early YouTube, just figuring it out. They were like dropping their like messages like on they were writing what they saw and they'd throw it out of the biplane behind their own lines and someone would pick it up, and sometimes they try to actually throw up. It was insane. But what we saw was it's the ultimate high ground. And then you have to see with 1947, the separation of the Army Air Forces into its own branch, the Air Forces, because it was now becoming clear that this was such an important new field or plane of existence for warfighting.
Nice pun.
Yeah, you got it. We needed a whole new branch for it. And then we're seeing that again now with this separation of the Air Force, and it's been a long time coming with the creation of the Space Force. It's the ultimate high ground. You have to be able to look down and see everyone, and it seems like the creation of the Space Force might have been the early stages of a new sort of, I don't know what it would be, an arms race or something, but there's no way other nations aren't. Neil deGrasse Tyson's book, Accessory to War, he talks about just how absolutely invaluable space technology is. And once someone else does something, you have to keep up, just like the nuclear arms race in the Cold War. I feel like it's only a matter of time before we see a China Space Force and India. And I don't know if that's a bad thing. Is it just driving us all to space? Is that a bad thing? It might be if we kill each other, it's a bad thing. But
so here's I'm not going to touch on the war stuff, in terms of should we all go to space? Yes. Yeah. And here's why. Because let's say you need 100 scientists to do your spacey stuff, or be it military, civilian, private business, private enterprise, whatever. You could just pick 100 scientists and hope you've got the best. Yeah. Or you could train 100,000 and pick the best 100.
Okay.
What do the other 99,900 do? They go into clean energy research. They go into education. They go into medicine. They go into construction. You suddenly, if you have a country that accelerates that educational process with a view to get the 100 best for the moon races, probably the best example, the amount of extra intellectual power you've created to find that has this huge balloon going on through. So when people go, what did the space race ever give us back in the 60s and 70s? We spent all that money. Yeah.
Give us everything.
And you saw just the top slice went to the moon. Everybody else, well, you wouldn't probably have had the home computer revolution without some of those people going into business to create those early computers in 74, 75, 76, 77. And at that point, you come across those coming out of the college who've been trained by all these people, meeting up the businesses who've been built up on this stuff, and they crash together in the late 70s, early 80s, and you have the home computer boom. You have your trash 80s, you have your Apple ones, and you have your Apple IIs. America got slightly distracted because you went console-based, and over in the UK and Europe, we spent another 5 or 6 years on actual play around actual programmable computers at home for gaming before the PC sort of took off in the mid-90s. But you had this huge brain trust built up. So if there was to be an acceleration into space now, my opinion is that would be a great thing, because you'd have to find 100 or 1,000 really good people. And behind them will be another 99,000 really good people that have missed out by a fraction. Yes. And that's where the science and the discovery and everything will come from. Not that 1,000 that went to the space race. They'll do what they need to do. And they'll work out how to build rocks on Mars so we can hide under the ground and be in a cave and go, oh, we're in a cave on Mars. Yeah, but it's still a cave. But we're on Mars. And at the same time, that extra brain power back on Earth can solve so many problems.
Yes. Yeah. That's actually brilliantly said.
Look at what we've done with the COVID vaccine.
Yeah.
Now, normally vaccines take 10 years, and 9 years of that is approvals and trials and legal stuff. But when it was needed, none of that was done. It was just like, right, we need the smartest minds to do this. And remember, they'd already worked out how to do RNA delivery. They did the hard bit of how do we get the body to accept the recipe was already done. All they needed to do was find the recipe and then do trials and going through. Now imagine that you had 10 times the number of people working on a project and 100 times because there's been more people put through education. They've been supported through education. They're going into education not knowing that they're not going to come out with 99 years of debts on student loans. They know they can come out and they can just learn it. There's a lot to be said for social education, and social as in socialist. Not we teach everybody social education and social work. Although again, the amount of advantages you could have on that when you look at mental health. The last 15 months, I think we're all struggling a little bit, and I think nobody's will come out of this the same. And I think a lot of people are going to be a lot more understanding about mental health issues. And again, that's going to be a great thing. So, there are a lot of adversaries coming through, but I like to see the good side of all of these things.
So I've had people, that's kind of a running joke on this podcast, is that I'm nauseatingly optimistic, but I don't see any other way to do it. I mean, and as I've kind of beat the drum ad nauseum on this podcast, in 2014, I lost my older brother to suicide. Mental health is very near and dear to me. And
my thoughts to that. It's of course family members there as well.
Yeah, but so that is one of the benefits I try to look, and people may say benefits, but I say yes, benefits. That's what I look at COVID as, is I'm like, hey, this stigma of mental health, I would say, took a severe blow in the last 18 months, because now everyone got a taste of something. Anxiety about a job, depression because they couldn't have a social life. Everyone got a little taste of it. And that's not to say, now you got a taste of your own medicine. No, it's everyone. You go, oh, okay, I get it. And I think we're going to see something positive come from that. And
well, the number of viruses that are out there that haven't had research on them.
Mm-hmm.
COVID has proven that, we can actually take on a virus. This is one of the first this is one of the first viruses where it's like science went, right, we need to stop this one. Mm-hmm. Now, there are so many more that would normally not be, let's choose one, they would normally be sexy enough to get the funding. But now, we've got far more building blocks. We've got this whole, we can just change the recipe and switch out the RNA delivery system. And, there are many that can be addressed now. And I hope that continues. I fear that the companies will be looking more to turn a profit rather than to benefit that. But I suspect that's another whole hour or so with somebody far more experienced and knowledgeable than me.
Yeah, there is the beauty of it. It's another kind of dark truth to accept. Are we not at our best in the light of tragedy? Be it Sputnik, be it COVID.
I wouldn't call Sputnik a tragedy, not for the world. It would certainly be upsetting for that flag. And the UK as well. We will look up Blue Steel and some of the stuff we had going. We dropped the ball on that one as well. But without Sputnik, you wouldn't have had that race to do Explorer 1.
Well, that's what I mean. Is that
without Sputnik,
subjective tragedy?
Yes. You can have short-term issues, short-term problems, but you can overcome those. Without Sputnik, would man have reached the moon before 1969? No. Without Sputnik, here's one for you. Without Sputnik, you wouldn't have had the space race. And the space race was all about, we've got better missiles than you. We've got better rockets. We can put more things in space. We can put heavier things in space. We can land things in space. If Russia and America hadn't been doing that in the 60s, they probably would have spent more money on nuclear warheads, better delivery systems, and found, pardon my French, another way to measure the size of their dicks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the space race was the Cold War, but it was also a really relatively safe way of conducting the Cold War.
It was.
When you think that there have been decisions by individuals, 4 or 5 that we know about over the last 30 or 40 years, that would have done nuclear war by mistake.
Mm-hmm.
The launch of Sputnik probably saved the world. And without that, you and I wouldn't be here.
That's actually you're right. It was a safe place to let off steam.
Yeah.
Instead of every day having a D-Day or a Battle of Berlin, it was who can launch farther, faster, better, quicker.
Yeah, and there were a couple of warriors on each side, and they were meeting in combat in the middle of the battlefield, rather than having hundreds of thousands of soldiers crashing in the middle of the field like a medieval battle. It's a much more honourable way of doing things.
Yeah.
And when there were tragedies on both sides acknowledged that there had been deaths on the other side. Even in the middle of the coldest period, you still had American astronauts traveling to the funeral of Russian astronauts. Mm-hmm. And it was some time before there were American astronaut deaths, but you then had Russian astronauts at those services as well, or at least in the case of Apollo 1, I believe, at least passing over their condolences warrior to warrior, mm-hmm. as opposed to country to country. Mm-hmm. So, I can take your immediate point. Sputnik was a bad thing, but I actually think it was one of the best things that allowed us to see the 21st century.
Well, that's what when I say bad thing, that's what I mean. Is it's a bad thing that acted as a catalyst for innumerable great things. And I mean, you can only hope that it happens again with some sort of space race, a space race 2.0, even if it's between private corporations, Blue Origin versus SpaceX, or if we get some real money behind it and do US versus CCP, the payoff could be, I mean, we could advance 100 years of space development in 20 years. And now the downside is like, I don't know, maybe it's nukes falling from orbit, but we've avoided that this far. I think we can keep
1968 space treaty. You're not going to have nuclear weapons in orbit without a break of the non-proliferation treaty. Everybody's pretty hot on that one.
Yeah, that's true, but once the bullets start flying, the treaties mean nothing. I'm with you. I don't think we should. I just tend to look at whoever's at the very top. I doubt the people at the top of the Pentagon really
I think they'll remember the lessons of the 60s and 70s and go, no, let's just put it this way. If you suddenly see American business, American government, Chinese government all going, right, that's it, we're going to be first to Mars, then you can just go, there's our release valve.
There's our just let it all out there.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I hope. I think the best thing that could happen would be the private race for either asteroid mining or helium-3 on the moon. If you can turn a profit,
is a better chance than asteroid mining. The problem with asteroid mining is you've got far too much delta V to get back from an asteroid.
Mm-hmm.
Your helium mining, you already know how to get to the moon. You only need to know how to get back. If you're doing helium-3 mining, the chances are you've got to have ice on the moon. You're going to be able to crack it, hydrogen and oxygen from that. That's rocket fuel. So it should be, again, easier to do that. And given that the moon is shared, much like the Antarctic is, it's for everybody, but you have that bit, you have that bit, you have that bit. Again, it's a nice release valve to go through there as well. But again, you're seeing the differences. Take Elon Musk, for example. He's here's a guy that made his money from PayPal. Literally made his money from PayPal. And he's decided to build rockets and go to that and everything and fly into space and do that. Okay, a lot of that stays inside his company. But the obvious one is battery technology.
Mm-hmm.
From the Tesla cars to the battery that can sit at the side of your house for solar panels and so on. That's technology that's going through. People want to work for Musk, great. But again, you need to be in that top 1%. Everybody else, well-educated, well-learned, inquisitive, can go somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And in a time where the American government took its eye off the ball and for a good decade, its only way into space was to buy a ticket on the Russian Uber. When you've got something like the Dragon X capsules, it's coming up, by private business. But it's in exactly the same way as the US Postal Service started.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the US Postal Service was, as long as you get our letters from A to B, we'll give you this much money. We don't care how you do it. But don't kill anybody. There's some basic parameters and stuff. Yeah. But it was like we just need to get this from A to B. Yeah. And that started up intercontinental travel in the US. Now, you do the same thing with the space program. So you say, right, we're going to buy 50 seats to the International Space Station over the next 2 years. Give us those 50 seats. We want to do 3 at a time. We don't care how you do it, but here are the parameters. It's got to be safe, it's got to be reusable, blah, 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 blah. US government isn't building its own space rockets, isn't building its own space capsules. But the US government never built the US, it's building the space travel in the same way that it built the US PTO. Let's put aside the political stuff for the last couple of years that's been going on in USPTO. I'm talking about the nice idealized version here. You can do exactly the same with space travel. You can say, right, we just need seats to go from here to here. You want to get to the moon? Great. We want you to move 10 tons of helium-3 from the moon back to Earth. We don't care how you do it. Here are the parameters.
And here's a check.
But only if you can deliver.
Yes. I would love...
Like the post office.
Yeah, like the post I would.
And here's the thing. They could say it's not an exclusive thing. They'll just say, look, if you can do it, we'll buy it. And every company knows that it's not first to do it. It's just, as long as you can do it, as long as you can move 10 tons, we'll give you the ticket.
It's kind of like warp speed with the vaccine. Here's the money. You can't be held liable. We need it.
Yeah, and the parameters there, of course, were still going to be safe. We will indemnify you, but it's got to be in those things.
Yeah.
So, seats to the space station, seats to the moon, helium back from the moon.
Do you think we'll see DARPA do that sometime in the next year, 10 years? Do you think we'll see an X prize of, hey, bring back 10 tons of helium-3 from the moon, You can't hit any continents.
Look, that would involve me having far more knowledge about certain things than I have, so I don't know. I would like it to happen, but I don't think it will be that simple. Yeah. And that's simply because most politicians only have a 2-year cycle. They've got to wait for the next seats to Congress and the Senate, and then their own re-election. So, unless something can be delivered in 2 years, it's not going to happen. This is where JFK did a really smart thing. He managed to do something that lasted for 7 years.
And beyond his
3 different political cycles, delivered by somebody from the opposite party. Yeah, that's what's needed.
Yeah,
but I struggle to see how that's going to happen when, certainly in America, the red and the blue are so very, very far apart.
Yeah,
when the goal is, well, we're going to do everything different to the team that was in before.
Yeah,
you can't. That means in theory that. Given your home in deorbit, you could go to the moon, launch under a Democrat, land on the moon as a Republican, and then come back as a Democrat.
Yeah, we need...
Who takes the credit?
That's what... Well, it's that beautiful quote. It's that beautiful quote, right? Brilliant things can happen when no one's concerned about who gets the credit.
I think that is one of the Russian... might have been one of the late... I think I can't remember which Russian mission it was.
And it doesn't matter because we don't need to give credit.
Oh, no, we do give credit. Always give credit. They took off, and Khrushchev was in charge of Russia. And when they landed, Brezhnev was in charge of Russia.
Yeah.
There had been a coup while they were in orbit.
In flight. In orbit. But that is if we had something, and I would hope you would have something like DARPA, who kind of, their MO is that they're not tied down by red tape. They move very independently. You would hope for something like that, where you could either do, the best thing you could do would be like if Biden made a JFK-esque announcement by the end of this decade, because no matter what, if Biden serves 2 terms, he'll still be out by, January 20th, 2029. If he can just make a statement about the end of this decade to where it implies that it doesn't matter if I get it. That's what we need, is you need to forwardly announce, and granted, it's very easy for me to sit here behind a laptop and say what America needs to do. I get that it's a detached viewpoint. But if you just
I think, though, that covers most of the Americans with a laptop, though.
100% of us across the board, 100% of us. So I'll just blend into the noise. But you would need something like that, right? Or maybe can you move it even beyond the United States? Would it be a US-UK thing? Could it be something in the face of China? Could we conjure up a boogeyman and say we need to do this to fight China? But there are a couple of ways to it. Obviously, the release valve there is something you talk about, that we've got to beat China. But at the same time, it could also be a joint mission with China. Sure.
Beautiful. There's
global warming.
It requires a number of special, powerful connectors in politics across many disciplines and parties and countries to have that sort of effort. And remember, even the moon race in the 60s was still dogged by politics.
Mm-hmm. Kicking that money back to Texas.
Yeah, we're going to have... It's going to be Houston. Why is it in Houston of all places? Why are you putting it next to the rockets? Why is it that you had 2 wonderful capsules built by McDonnell Douglas, and then it's like, right, we're going to build a moon capsule now. Great. Who's going to go for it? Well, we thought we'd give it to Northrop. What?
That's how it works, baby. That's how it works, baby.
Stealth technology. Lockheed had a great plan for a follow-up to the stealth fighter with a stealth bomber, but no, we're going to share the money around, so we're going to build a B-1B up with Grumman.
Hey, you got to love...
Grumman Northrop. So.
Yeah, you got to love the United States. We do practice perfect socialism when it comes to defense contracts. It doesn't matter who wins the fighter contract, the F-22 Raptor, the YF-23 Black Widow. It doesn't matter who wins it. We're still going to say, okay, Grumman, you build the cockpit. Lockheed, you build the body and the avionics. General Dynamics, we do practice perfect socialism when it comes to $1 trillion defense contracts.
About medicine, though. Pity about medicine.
Yeah, who needs medicine? We just need bombers, right? B-21s and everything.
We're going to take off and bomb the COVID from the skies. Well, do you see the problem with this? and that's the complete opposite to the post office thing.
Yeah.
Of how the post office is set up, which is just get it from A to B, we'll give you the money.
Yeah.
Nowadays it would be we want all the companies involved and different people working the sorting, and all the airlines are going to have a little bit of the distribution. So, from Denver to Los Angeles, we'll give that to American. From Denver back to Chicago, we'll give that to United. Mm-hmm. It's much easier to go, bring us back 10 tons, you get the money.
Get it done.
We don't care how. But that's completely different to how she said how the defense contraction system works at the moment. And that's why I think private business is more likely to be the first to land on Mars than a governmental organization, at least from the US point of view.
Yeah. A beautiful thing that I think kind of like the steam valve or the release valve is another sort of carrot you can dangle. Is so like, how do you incentivize a guy like Bezos or Musk who already have more money than God? You could offer them even more money. I think what's going to drive them is they want that name in the history books. They want to be the Christopher Columbus. They want to be the Wright brothers. They want, maybe not Christopher Columbus, but they want to be one of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, he directed the Harry Potter movies. Why would you want to be remembered as much as him? And also, it's only the first two. You really want to be like Joseph Guerrero, who did the third one. Him, that's a much better direction.
Yeah.
I like that.
Right, but you want to.
Why bring up Hollywood director then?
You'd want to be right. You'd want to be. I love it. No, I know. I love it, man. Right, you want your name to be on like a Jamestown or something, right? That's what I think they want. Is they want to become immortalized. They want to be a Washington. You don't want to be an Abe Lincoln or an FDR or whoever. You want to be Washington, D.C. I think that's what they want. They want a Bezos, a Musk. They want something that becomes blended into his. Because I think what else can you give someone that has $200 billion? I think they want that. I think they want that name in history books. And again, that's just a guess, but
a quote I cannot attribute, unfortunately, but I'm sure somebody in the comments will do, is somebody was someone asked somebody in the public eye, what do you want to be remembered for? And his answer was, I just want to be remembered.
Well, that's a dangerous precedent because Hitler's remembered.
It's a wonderful trumpet player.
Yeah. He had some paintings, but he also did some other well-known things.
And that's what you always have to watch for. Somebody who's incredibly right-wing, who can take a country that was basically left destitute after a Great War, and
turn into a savage, genocidal machine.
Yep. And we always need to be on the guard for that.
That's the thing that I've tried to think about. I've thought about it a lot. I've tried to break it down over hundreds of podcasts. But why is it that Nazi Germany, why does that stick in our minds so much over a Genghis Khan, over a Stalin? And it's because of what you just said. It was one of the, if not the centers of like high society, of culture, of modernity. It wasn't a bunch of, if you see like a genocide in the middle of like Africa and it's warlords, part of your mind kind of goes, it was going to happen there. When you see kind of like a Germany, when you see this modern, cultural, progressive place turn into the systematic tattooing and train carring and incineration and using hammers to knock the gold out of their teeth, you go, oh, right. It's one thing if there's a 9/11. It's another thing when you see, right, Columbine or Sandy Hook, when you go, wait, what? These two kids from the suburbs went in with a machine gun? There's something that really sticks in our mind with that, is you do have to stay. It shows that anyone can turn into that.
I think one of the reasons that it remains a touchstone is that most of us, certainly of my generation, would know people who fought in the war. As I said, that I have a very rough idea of the movements of my grandfather, but he never talked about it, but there was still a connection. The two things I can remember of when we went on a family holiday to Italy, I was about 5 or 6. And my grandfather's just like, why are you going to Italy? It took me a long time to work out why he had that reaction.
Okay.
And yeah, so it's like, there is still that connection. And it also is documented. There's not that many years between the Great War and the Second World War.
Yeah.
But the difference is there's a lot more documented about the Second World War, because that's when we started to get technology. That's when there started to be this idea that you could share beyond. It's like you had radio, so you would hear from Berlin. You would hear Edward Morrow talking about the state of the World War in Europe, back in America. You didn't have any of that in any previous war. Yeah. You had newspaper reporting, but it would be very much delayed. But you would get real time on radio. You'd get Pathé newsreels. I don't know what they would be called in America, but they would have filmed from the front, shipped back and put together. Clearly propaganda, of course, but there was an immediacy in society that the home front saw the front line, and they'd never seen that before. And to a certain extent, because that was the first one, it had that visceral impact in the collective memory of humanity.
Okay.
And
I see what you're saying.
Future wars, Korea and Vietnam, Korea was a police action, Vietnam, they were still there. They're still known, and they're still very much painful to individuals and families who had people there. But it didn't have this visceral rip in society. And then after the war, the discussion of the Holocaust, again, was, even nowadays, you're only one generation removed from people who may have experienced it.
Mm-hmm.
You're certainly one generation removed from people who went through part of it, be it home front, be it the front line, and going onwards. And I worry that we lose touch from that over the next 5-10 years.
Yep.
As in the same way that we only have 4 of the moon landing astronauts still alive. When they're gone, all those stories are gone.
Yeah.
We'll still be left with all the radio broadcasts, all the tapes, all the documentaries, all the interviews they've done. But the actual people who actually went out there, who drew their daughter's name on the sand, who smuggled a golf club head onto the top of a shovel just so they could just go, hey, miles and miles. You sliced it 50 yards, Al. They've done the maths. We lose. Once you lose that connection, you're left with whatever the history books decided was the right story.
And people can.
And World War II is the first war where we knew more than the history books.
Okay.
The history books wouldn't talk about individuals. So my wife's grandfather, again, we don't know the story. He never talked about it. But from what we can tell, he was shot down over Germany and he walked back. And then he was shot down over Germany again.
What the?
And he walked back the other way. And then they went, nope, that's as far as you're going. But that's not written in the books. But you can find it. We all know the film The Great Escape, certainly in the UK. I don't know how much of an impact it has in the US. But when you actually read about what they actually did in that war camp, because one of the prisoners wrote the book, Paul Brickhill, he was part of there was another escape. So here's the thing. You're aware of The Great Escape, Stalag 3, 79 and They didn't stop escaping from that camp while they were building that big tunnel. Because otherwise, what would the Germans have done?
Yeah.
Why are you all being so nice and gentle? You're meant to be the best escapers of the British Army, and you're not doing anything. What are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they kept on doing other escapes, and there was an incredibly famous one called the Wooden Horse. Heard of it?
No.
So, first of all, they built a wooden vaulting horse.
Naturally.
Pommel horse, yeah. But, of course, it had solid sides. And they would take it out and they would leave it by the wire and they'd do their exercises and they'd jump over it, they'd knock it over, and the Germans could see it's just a wooden horse and everything, and they just leave it out there all day and bring it in at night. After the first day or two, they put 2 people inside the wooden horse, took it out and put it right next to the wire, 100 yards away from the sheds, 50 yards away from the fence. They built a trap door out by the wire, and they started digging from this wooden horse.
Oh, shit.
So then they bring the dirt in, hang it up in the horse, put the trapdoor back down, take it back inside for the night. Next day, take the horse out, 2 more people in it, put it down, dig a little bit further. They had to go only a third of the distance because they were right next to the wire. Again, there's a book called The Wooden Horse. There's a lovely British film about it, so I would go for the book because it also talks about what happens afterwards. And here's the amazing thing about it.
I'm going to write it down. Do you know the name of the author?
Well, it was originally Paul Bricker, but he wrote it under a pseudonym at that point because because it was not long after the war. They didn't want to say who he was doing and everything. I think it's Eric something.
Eric Williams?
Eric Williams, yeah.
Okay.
3 people went into the tunnel on the final night. 3 of them got out the tunnel. 3 of them got home. They had 3 home runs from the 3. One of the most successful multiple escapes from World War II.
Yeah.
And this was happening at the same time as they were planning what would be known in popular culture as the Great Escape.
Okay.
And again, there's 2 stories there. One of them you're completely familiar with because it's become the accepted wisdom. It's part of society. It's part of the fabric. Even though there were no Americans in the camp, so who Steve McQueen is playing, I have no idea. He played the German motorcyclist card. Steve McQueen on the motorbike is being chased by Steve McQueen wearing a German uniform on the motorbike. There you go. But culture doesn't talk about the other escape that happened at the same time, the wooden horse escape.
Yeah.
But we still have that. We still have all of those stories. So we have a different, more wider knowledge of World War II than any other war.
Yeah.
And because of that, and then you had that fascination and you have all the war films in the 40s, 50s and 60s building through, it's built up, for want of a better word, this mystique.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it remains a touchstone.
Yeah.
You know, if you think about the number of people who died in World War One, you know, you think about all the people who died on the Eastern Front. Again, not really part of the sort of Western storytelling of World War II, but it's all there. You know, you very rarely hear about the fall of Singapore when you talk about World War II. But again, it's all there. So you have this interesting dichotomy of this romantic view of black and white. And, you know, it was very, very black on one side, but it's war. It was very, very black in various respects on all the other sides as well. The obvious point there is Dresden.
Mm-hmm. The firebombing.
And the firebombings of Hamburg.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, the raids such as the 617 raid on the Mo and the Eder dams from 617, very much celebrated. Well, you know, there was a lot of people further down the valleys who were drowned.
Yeah.
Including a Russian labor camp.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's very useful to grab onto things like that and use them as emotional touchstones nearly 80 years later. And there's a danger in doing that.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap this one up.
But remember, folks, I was on to talk about Apple.
We were going to talk about the M1 and the M2, but I had to mention Charlie Duke, and we were off to the races. But that's, what did I tell you right before we started? I don't like to have any parameters. I like to see where it goes. And that, I think that was far more interesting than anything we were going to talk about, man. Dude, I would love to have you back on. I would love to have you back on. We can talk about technology. I would also love to just have you back on and shoot the shit about World War II and space. That was you're a mesmerizing individual to listen to.
You've got some reading. You've got some reading to do now.
I do. It's very rarely that I have a guest on where I don't want to, because I talk nonstop. I love the sound of my voice, right? You're one of the few guests that I was actually intent on. I just wanted to keep. So you got it. That's beautiful, man. That's the if I'm not making it clear, it's the biggest compliment I can give. It's fantastic.
Tell me something your listeners don't know about you.
Something that my listeners don't know about me. I came to the edge of death about a day after my 29th birthday.
Yeah.
Medical reaction. Woke up in the ER. I was out for a couple days. I was intubated. I was strapped down because I was fighting doctors. They thought I was going to die. And I won't go into it for familial reasons, but I came out of that, had to work up, had to recover to the point where I could like walk up and down stairs and like breathe again. And that was the first night I had prayed in probably 15 years. And I prayed to my deceased brother and to my deceased uncle, who also took his life, who was a surgeon at the hospital that I went to, and everyone knew him there. And it was the first time I had prayed in 15 years. And I said, I really need y'all's help because I have got to succeed at something and move out of my parents' house. And I started to realize it probably wasn't going to be graphic design. And the thing that I feared the most, which was doing something, whether it was stand-up comedy or talking or something, I knew that was my strong suit. I knew that I could talk effortlessly. And I asked for guidance because I was terrified that I truly was coming close to death, closer and closer to death. And a couple months later, I started this podcast, and I have not looked back. That's something I haven't brought up.
I find it interesting podcast. You said you prayed to family.
I did. I prayed to my brother and to my Uncle Court. And I just...
Sounds like the answer to you.
I just said, I remember sitting there. I was praying to him, and I was like, it was very informal. I was like, look, motherfuckers. I was like, I'm walking a tightrope between life and death. And graphic design wasn't working out. Writing wasn't working out. And I was like, I remember saying, I will do the work. Just show me what I need to do. I got into medical school in college. I was like, I know how to work hard. Just show me what I need to do. And that's what this was. And that's why every day I email at least one new guest who I've never emailed before. Most say no. Some, such as yourself, say yes. But that's the reason I don't slow down. That's the reason I don't take days off. Because I literally woke up in a hospital. And I remember my doctor said, I was like, did I knock on death's door? And she goes, you opened it up a couple inches. And I remember thinking, holy shit. That's something I've never talked about on this podcast.
Thanks for saying that. And I'm sure everybody's going to listen to that one. I'll return the favor, actually. Yes, so I've been about 10 to 15 seconds away from death twice in a week. And in 2018, out of absolutely nowhere, I developed epilepsy. I took the bin out one night. I came back in. And I went to my wife, I feel a little bit dizzy. Next thing I know, there was a paramedic standing over me. And I have 40 minutes missing. But effectively what happened was I went to a full grand mal seizure, fell backwards onto the stairs, bit my tongue, was bleeding into my throat. And my wife was thankfully right next to the stairs when that happened. Otherwise, that would have been me drowned. They took me in a hospital. They said, most people have that once in life, about 50% of people. Let us know. We'll set you up with a clinic. Let us know if it happens again. Got home on Friday morning. Friday night, straight to my wife. Here we go again. Rolled off the sofa, full grand mal fit. Arm and body trapped under the sofa, bleeding into my mouth again. And again, the only thing that saved me was I was able to be turned over by my family.
It's beautiful. It's terrifying.
No,
it's beautiful.
No more, still the medication now. I've got to take one of these every 12 hours for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I am on medication. I'm on medication, man.
Let's all share medication. Yeah. I've also got San Francisco Giants in the World Series. So, there you go.
Well, man, I appreciate you telling me that story. I've never had someone ask me that. That I had to dig deep, because I'm a very open book. I had to dig deep for that.
Yeah.
But,
it's right bugger when you got someone who's been doing interviews and podcasting for 16 years on your show, isn't it?
You're fucking making me bring my A game. But you know what? There is a dark beauty in what happened to you. Right, it was your wife's grandfather.
Yeah.
Shot down twice, walked back twice. Hey, man, it looks like you're just following in the footsteps. Do the impossible twice. Make sure you're still alive.
Yeah. And it's been a fun life. Still is a fun life.
It's fantastic.
There's something lovely when you're on a business trip and your GPS says, leave the Russian War Museum, walk across Red Square, turn right, you've arrived at your hotel. That's a story for another time, I think.
There's life is, I can say this, the Hunter S. Thompson quote. Life has become Life has become immeasurably more enjoyable since I was forced to stop taking it so seriously. Yeah. Almost dying makes you go, you gotta fucking wing it.
Yeah, I'll go with the way that Spike Milligan always used to sign off his letters. He was one of the greatest comedic minds the United Kingdom, the 20th century. He'd always sign off his letters LLP. So go on then. First of all, you tell me, have a guess what LLP means.
With love, learning, and philosophy?
Pretty close, actually. You got one of those. He would always sign off with love, light, and peace.
Okay.
So let's just leave each other that way as well. Love, light, and peace to you, Tommy.
You as well, sir. Mr. Spence, or can I call you Ewan?
Oh, you always can, yeah.
Okay. Wasn't sure. Wanted to be safe. With love, light, and peace, Ewan. I cannot wait for us to do another podcast because I think we have a lot in front of us. Thank you, sir. God bless. God bless America. God bless Scotland.
Recording stopped.